Hey everyone, it's Steven. Today I have the 2022 Mercedes-AMG A35. I'm in beautiful New Zealand, hence the unique license plate here. And I got this awesome performance vehicle from Sixt at Auckland Airport. Really fun to drive for the last 2.5 weeks while I road trip from the North Island to the South Island. So the AMG A35 is actually going to be the cheapest AMG vehicle you can buy out there. It's the entry-level AMG A-Class. So you've got the A-Class, you've got the A35, and you've got the A45 above that with a more powerful engine. This one right here, MSRP is for about 85,000 New Zealand dollars, which is quite a lot. That's about 54,000 US dollars. And as I have it spec'd out here, you've got the driver assistance package and the vision package, giving it a total MSRP of about 90,000 New Zealand dollars. So the A-Class is actually Mercedes' smallest sedan. So you've got the A-Class, C-Class, E-Class, all the way down to the S-Class, which is going to be the largest of the sedans. So the A35 is essentially AMG's version of it. They take the normal A-Class engine and then they tune it up to make it more powerful. The A45 is going to be the largest and most powerful engine in the lineup. I really wish I had that one, but the A35 is still a really good compromise because it's cheaper, more affordable, and you still get that AMG performance. Unfortunately, in the US, you probably don't see too many of these because the A-Class got discontinued in 2022, which means starting in the 2023 model year, they're not selling the A-Class anymore in the US. They still are selling it overseas, like for example in New Zealand and Australia, but they're just not doing so well in the US, so Mercedes decided to discontinue that. The A35 actually got discontinued before that in 2021, so we haven't seen an AMG A-Class in quite a while, so I was really excited to see one here in New Zealand and rent it. So this A35 here comes with a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. Like I said, actually the same engine as what's in the A-Class, but this is tuned up by AMG to make it more powerful. This one creates 225 kilowatts and 400 Newton meters of torque. I'll put the US conversions for that here as well. This gives you 0 to 60 times in about 4.7 seconds, which is pretty darn fast, right? This tiny little thing can really scoot. And when you put your foot down, it really accelerates fast, especially when you put it in Sport Plus mode. The engine is mated to a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission, very smooth shifts as expected from a luxury car like Mercedes, AMG, and this gives you fuel economy numbers of 7.6 liters per 100 kilometers, which is the equivalent of about 31 miles per gallon US. All right, let's talk about this gorgeous exterior. I love the styling. I know it's a little controversial, but for the A35 AMG 2022 version, you've got a nice AMG grille. This was actually, this model first came out in 2020, so it's actually been around for a little while. Hoping for a refresh at some point where you get those vertical slats instead of this normal AMG grille. I really like the vertical slats. Mercedes calls that the Panamericana grille. I love that grille. I think it looks way more aggressive than this normal one with the 2 horizontal bars here. You've got the AMG logo though, always a very cool touch, and you do have some functional vents, but some also not functional. But I think enthusiasts will be pleased with the overall front fascia. It looks relatively understated, definitely not as bombacious as the rear. All right, we've got the headlights on. These are full LEDs. They do a really cool dance at startup. I'll show you guys right here. I love that. I love those small little quirks that make a car more interesting and unique. And I mean, if I saw that in the parking lot, I would think that that's a really cool vehicle, right? All right, now let's talk about the side profile. First thing that most people will notice are these really nice 19-inch alloy wheels. I love them. I love multi-spoke wheels. I think what I've realized is that the more spokes, the more into the wheel I am. I will say though that the AMG brake caliper could look a little better. I would love a yellow or a red or something like that. This one you've got some like nice silver painted ones. So still pretty cool, more than the normal A-Class, but not as flamboyant as I would really like it to be honestly for a hot hatch like this. You've got some pretty typical Mercedes body lines here, but you can tell it's a really small vehicle, right? Like when you're looking at the full profile, this is a tiny vehicle. Very nice in New Zealand because some of these parking spots are really tough and some of these roads are like kind of crazy. So this has been super fun for those windy roads, obviously. You've got some side skirts at the bottom, giving a little bit more aerodynamics, right? And then kind of taking it back to the rear here, same wheel design in the back, of course, but I think what most people are going to talk about and notice immediately is going to be this huge wing. I love this wing. I'm obsessed with this wing. I think it looks fantastic. You can actually get it without the wing if you want. Don't really know why you would get an AMG if you don't want it to be so, you know, out there and like in your face kind of. But I just love the rear. I think it looks fantastic. The taillights, pretty typical Mercedes, right? Nothing special about that, but the wing definitely completes this look. You've got twin exhaust pipes at the bottom. I wish it had quad, but I understand that, you know, for a vehicle like this size, you might not want quad exhaust. You do have a rear diffuser, a functional one in the rear, kind of cool. You do have some vents here, but unfortunately, those actually aren't real vents, so nothing actually goes through them. And to round on the rear, you've got the AMG badging here, AMG A35. Let's take a listen at how this AMG vehicle sounds. pretty good, right? I will say in comfort mode, it's pretty tame. Put it in sport or sport plus though, and it gets really aggressive and you get those pops and crackles. All right, let's take a look in the boot, as they say here. So it is not an automatic, which is kind of sad. You have to lift it open, which is, I mean, for Mercedes, you would kind of expect an automatic lift gate at this point. But you've got about 360 liters of space here, which is the equivalent of about 12.3 cubic feet of cargo space. Not the most, as you can see. You can probably fit a few small bags here, but for large suitcases like we had for this long trip, not going to fit. But you can lay down the rear seats in a 40-60 split, and that actually gives you a decent amount of cargo space, making this a bit more practical than you would expect. All right, let's take a look at the interior of the 2022 AMG A35. Really quickly, check out this gorgeous mountain view. I'm in Mount Cook National Park right now, and a very convenient time for me to film, right? So I wanted to show you guys the key fob here really quickly. This is the AMG key fob. You do have the AMG signature on here. Otherwise, a pretty standard key fob. You do have keyless entry on this model. And, you know, just going in, one of my favorite things, the AMG door sill that lights up. Love that touch. Going inside, pretty solid thunk on that door slam. I think overall the cabin does have an air of quality around it. And then let me start the vehicle. Not very loud, as you probably noticed. Again, this is the entry-level AMG, so it's not going to be as loud as the A45. However, if you do put it in Sport Plus, it definitely gets louder. So if you really want those pops and crackles, that's where you're going to have to go with. So let's just start by taking a quick look around the cabin and seeing how luxurious it looks, right? You've got the ambient lighting that you can kind of see right here. I love it. I actually have it on a dynamic setting right now where it just rotates through the color palettes, which is really cool. I love not having to actually, you know, care about what color it is because it always changes. And then let's talk about the seats first. All right, these are the AMG bucket seats. They look pretty nice. You've got the AMG logo in the middle. Classic sport bucket seats, right? Pretty hard plastic back, but the seats themselves are relatively comfortable. I wouldn't say they're the most comfortable though. I think, you know, I've been driving a ton in New Zealand and you know, more than an hour and a half or so, I get a little annoyed in the seat. Otherwise, the seats are pretty well contoured. I think they fit most body shapes. You do have a thigh extension, however, that is manual. And you have your pretty typical Mercedes controls for your seat adjustments. So you do have all the normal things you would expect, lumbar control, things like that. However, lumbar control is actually in the infotainment system here, which I find kind of weird. On the actual door panel itself, that is actually not for lumbar. It's kind of weird. I don't know why. I think in other Mercedes model, lumbar is integrated into the door panel controls, but not for this specific model. So the door panel looks okay. I do like the aluminum brushed metal that you have around there. And then you do have heated seats for both of the front seats, which is as expected in the luxury price tag. So going into one of the more interesting pieces of the infotainment system, I've covered the Mercedes infotainment system in plenty of other reviews. The AMG GL E53 had basically the exact same thing. This is their MBUX platform, which yeah, I've covered in a lot of other videos. I'll kind of link them here, but kind of just looking through it again, of course it is responsive, right? This is me using the steering wheel. It's responsive, it's pretty easy to use, relatively intuitive. I will say there is definitely a learning curve, right? Like there's so many different screens you can scroll through, like up, down, left, right, whatever, right? You have your favorites buttons, you have themes, all that sort of stuff. And then, you know, you can kind of go through here, and the touchscreen, I will say it's kind of smart that they use your steering wheel, because the touchscreen is a little far away for the driver and it's not the easiest to hit, and my arm does get kind of tired reaching out this far. So yeah, you do have a car wash mode, which I think is pretty cool. Use that plenty of times here. And then these are just your quick access buttons to kind of program different things in your vehicle. So overall, you know, it's very responsive, right? I like that. You know, it responds like a smartphone, and I think a lot of people will like that because it is a pretty standard thing to expect now in this day and age with technology. You do get the AMG performance stuff, which is really cool. So you can track different things like consumption, you can change your drive modes, of course, change what you want to configure in your individual drive mode, and look at like G-forces and all that sort of stuff. So it is definitely a pretty cool system. And before we move on to the digital gauge cluster, I'll show you guys what Apple CarPlay looks like. So it does take up the entire 10.25-inch screen, which I love. I really think that every manufacturer should do that. I don't understand why you have so much real estate if you're not going to take up the full thing, unless you have a huge display like Genesis, right? So yeah, anyways, Apple CarPlay looks good, works seamlessly. It is wired only though. I am not able to do a wireless connection here, which is a little annoying because I feel like most Mercedes have that capability now. All right, now taking a look at the digital gauge cluster, this is Mercedes' typical look. This is actually in what's called Sport, so you can actually adjust what different displays you want in the center here. You have to hit the home button. It's a little confusing. Like I said, it definitely has a bit of a learning curve, but you can go to Super Sport, which shows different things like G-force. It really accentuates your RPMs, things like that. I don't really like the look of that. I feel like it's a little crazy. Classic is just normal colors, so I do just like Sport because I don't know, I think the yellow look is pretty neat. I love like yellow brake calipers on cars, for example. I really wish this car had yellow brake calipers, but you've got everything you really need here. You've got temperature, you've got, you know, your speedometer, digital speedometer up there, your fuel range, your gear select, things like that. So it's a pretty solid digital gauge cluster, and there is a bit of configurability to it, which I think people will appreciate. Definitely not as much as like Audi does or something like that, but otherwise, like I said, there is a bit of a learning curve here for sure. But once you kind of figure it out, I think it's relatively easy to figure things out here. So in the center here, you can display a few different things. Right now I have it configured to display my music, so it'll display whatever song, media, whatever, things like that. But you can also display other things like your driver assistance and things like that. Speaking of driver assistance, this car comes with pretty much the full suite of everything you could expect. Blind spot monitors, rear cross traffic alert, 360 camera, and a heads-up display. So you can actually configure it in 3 parts. So you can see like the left, right, and center are all controlled separately, and you can show different things in them, which is really nice. Finally, jumping out here, you've got the steering wheel. Classic Mercedes, it's relatively thick, I like it. Very easy to hold, it's very well bolstered, feels good to hold. You don't have heated steering wheel on this model, which is a little bit of a disappointment. So you've got their AMG drive unit, which I love. I think this makes it look very, very sporty, very cool. You've also got the AMG badging, of course, at the bottom here. So this allows you to shift the drive mode very, very easily, which I love. I love the fact that you can just, I don't know, it's very clicky, it feels good, feels high quality. This allows you to shift different things, so you can choose what you want to control by clicking the buttons here, and then this is how you enable it. So you can choose Sport suspension, Sport Plus suspension, and Comfort. So I don't know, it's pretty cool. I don't know, I don't really use these ever, but it's a neat look. If you really want more like personalized configuration, this is how you do it. I like to just stick it in Sport and have fun, right? Sport Plus if I'm really feeling it, otherwise Comfort for long drives. But yeah, otherwise standard Mercedes thing. If you watch my recent review of the new C-Class, really don't like that double like look that the new Mercedes are going towards, unfortunately. I really like this system, and I don't know, it's relatively straightforward that you can use this to control your gauge cluster and then use this to control the infotainment screen. I do want to also mention that you do have adaptive cruise control, and this one actually has level 2 semi-autonomous driving, which means it'll trace lanes for you. You do have to keep your hand on the wheel though, it'll yell at you a lot if you don't, and it'll actually turn lanes for you, which is really cool. So yeah, if you ever need to shift lanes, you can just signal and it'll go right ahead and do it for you, which is pretty neat. All right, now let's go into the second row here. So this is the A-Class, which is the smallest sedan that Mercedes makes. So second legroom is not going to be the greatest. As you can see, I'll kind of show you guys what it looks like, but this is with the seat in the normal driving position. I have it, and you have decent legroom, and headroom is okay. I wouldn't say it's great. I mean, right now what's great is that we have this gorgeous view in the pano sunroof, which is really awesome. Being in the back definitely feels cramped. Like, legroom is okay, but like you can just kind of tell when you're sitting back here that you just don't have that much space. So 3 adults in the rear would definitely be a tight squeeze here. But otherwise, the actual amenities in the back are pretty nice. You do have the same contrast stitching, which gives the rear seats a pretty nice look. The actual door panels themselves look fine. They do have a bit of ambient lighting in them as well, but ambient lighting is definitely a thing much more in the front and less in the rear, unfortunately. I do think the rear seats are decent, but they are small. I will say that. I don't think most adults will find them too comfortable to be in for a very long time. The pano sunroof, though, definitely helps add to the area quality, makes it feel a little less claustrophobic back here. All right, guys, let's talk about how this car is to drive. So, as expected from an AMG, even though it is the entry AMG and the cheapest AMG available, this car is so much fun to drive. I think this car does so well in competing with the Volkswagen Golf R, right? The Golf R kind of sets the standard for this segment, right? The hot hatch. The Civic Type R is also a very, very well-known hot hatch as well, and I think this vehicle is very fun and really competes with that and gives it the luxury name tag and the kind of the brand, you know, prestigiousness of being a Mercedes, right? So, you know, we've been able to drive this car in some crazy mountain roads, and, you know, you can see the stunning scenery behind me. But, you know, there have been some crazy roads out here and very windy. And I mean, I could not have asked for a better car to drive around New Zealand for 2.5 weeks, right? You know, I'm in comfort mode right now, and you can already tell, right, even from that small stretch of driving, that like this car isn't going to be the most comfortable car. Like that's just, at the end of the day, I will say that's kind of the weird part, is that like this probably feels very similar to the Volkswagen Golf R, the Civic Type R, just because it's just not the most pleasant ride, right? Ride quality definitely suffers. The 19-inch wheels look cool, probably not the greatest for ride quality. So yeah, they're pretty thin tires, and I just feel like overall the tire noise, the road noise, oof, it's loud, and the New Zealand roads are pretty bad. So I think it really compounded the the loudness in the vehicle. And like, I mean, when we're going like 70, 80 miles per hour or something like that, it's deafening inside the cabin. So don't expect a luxurious experience even in comfort. However, I think to make up for that, I usually put it in sport, and I have a bit more fun. You know, holds the revs a little higher, steering stiffens a little bit, the suspension definitely firms up, and the fun increases, I would say. It makes it a lot more, it feels a lot more connected to the road when you're on those windy roads, I think. That was one of the big things for me, is that when you're in comfort, the steering is so light, it just feels kind of floaty, I think. Whereas when you actually put it in Sport or Sport Plus, the stiffer suspension really helps you feel a bit more connected to the road. Obviously, the ride quality suffers though. So at the end of the day, I just don't think you should get this vehicle if you're looking for a really compliant ride, right? You probably want to go for the C-Class if you're looking for that. Let me see if I can punch it a little bit here. Put it in Sport Plus. And I'm going to slow down right here. And let's punch it. Sport Plus is fun. That was actually perfect because this area has no people right now, so that was really, really fun to do. But in general, like, you know, Sport Plus is not really where you want to be unless you're really doing those launches, right? And you heard those pops and crackles. Sound fantastic, I think. That's something that I didn't expect from an entry-level AMG, right? Like, I thought this car might be a bit too muted. And I mean, when you listen to the exhaust by itself, it doesn't actually sound that like burbly, I feel. But when you're in the vehicle, you get some nice sounds when you're really punching it hard. I'm going to go back to Sport now. Sport is kind of my comfort zone. I really feel like that was the most comfortable one to be in. Still have the fun in case you need to pass up someone or something like that. You can really punch it and go fast, but you don't feel like your suspension is destroyed. So overall, this has just been such a great car to drive. You know, at the end of the day, this car is affordable. It is going to be, again, the cheapest Mercedes-AMG you can buy, so that helps. And it's fun. It's a great competitor to the Golf R. If you like the styling of Mercedes, if you want the fancier name badge, right, the luxury name badge of Mercedes-Benz, this is a really good vehicle for you to get, right? If you're looking at the Golf R, you're looking at the Civic Type R, and you're like, you know, I don't want to get a Honda, I don't want to get a Volkswagen, I want to get a Mercedes. This is a good competitor. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk through in today's review. Thank you guys so much for watching. You know, this has been a really special car to me, having it for 2.5 weeks and driving it all the way from Auckland to Queenstown. And I mean, look at these surroundings. It is just drop dead gorgeous out there. And, you know, couldn't ask for a better vehicle for this, just because it's been so much fun. Lots of windy roads in New Zealand. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think about this car. Would you take this over a Golf R or a Civic Type R? I think personally, I actually like the styling of the Civic Type R, and I love the Golf R's new redesigned styling. So I'm not sure, but the tech in this car, definitely better. The luxury, I'm not really sure about that part. You might be paying a little extra for that name tag. And overall, I mean, it's still an affordable AMG vehicle though. And I mean, AMGs are very well known for being great vehicles to drive, right? Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to check out some of my other videos, you can click up here. Please subscribe down here and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about the vehicle, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.